Now, what are we going to learn in this course? In this course, we are going to improve our programming skills and learn some new developer essentials. We will start by understanding where things usually may go wrong, and I will show you two real-life scenarios that developers come across during the development process. We are going to talk about what is a version control system and how it can help you to become a professional developer. We will choose Git as our version control system for this course, and we will download and install it, configure it, and talk about what it is and how we can use Git. We will then create our first Git project by initializing a new repository, as well as talking about some most common Git commands that will let you get started even with your own projects right from the beginning. Once we are done with the basics of Git, we are going to see why we should consider using GitHub. We will create a GitHub account and we will learn how to work with remote repositories, how it can be connected with Git, how to work with other people and other projects on GitHub, and so on. We are also going to see some basic GitHub functionalities, how to watch projects, how to see the history of projects, how we can create issues, how can we work with branches, and even how we can work with conflict resolution. So there is a lot of useful information for us to cover up in this crash course, and once you're finished you will be able to start working with Git and GitHub totally on your own by making your own projects as well as working with other projects and other teammates, basically by collaborating, which is freaking awesome, right guys? And lastly, one thing that I want to mention is the fact that a lot of high-tech companies require the knowledge of version control flow, and basically a lot of them even use Git and GitHub. So that's also another important reason why you should make your best to succeed in this course. So Git and GitHub, I hope you are ready because here we go. I want you first of all to understand why you even need it. I'm going to show you a couple of real-life scenarios that you're probably familiar with, and that's how we are going to build our way up and understand why we should use version control system, what it is, what is Git, and what is GitHub. And since it's a crash course and everything is related to one another, make sure you don't miss any second of any video. So let us start with the situation that happens a lot to us, the programmers. So scenario number one, or case number one. Suppose that you are working on some really cool project, maybe it's a website, an application, or even some system, I don't know, but I bet it's pretty amazing. And you've come to some point where your project is up and running and everything seems to be working as expected, and then comes a great idea to your mind. Why shouldn't you add this freaking amazing feature that you've thought about last night? This feature can basically make your project even more amazing and take you to the next level. I mean, we all sometimes have these kind of thoughts, right? So you decide to take your project and to add this new feature or even to modify just one thing, so now it should work much better. But unfortunately, once you're done, your program breaks. And all of your changes broke your program and now it doesn't seem to work at all. Sounds familiar, right? So what you do is that you go back to your code and try to change it back, to delete all the changes you've made and to make your program exactly as it was before when it still was working. But for some reason, the program still crashes. Maybe that's because you've missed one line, maybe you've deleted one more line than you should, I don't know, but the fact is that the program that previously was up and running now only crashes. And surprisingly or not, guys, this situation happens a lot. Whether you're a student or just some inexperienced developer, and this situation really can be so frustrating. Trust me, I've been there, it was not fun, and I don't want you to make these kind of mistakes. So, if we wanted to solve that, to do it right, let's think about a situation that you have some option to save the state of your program once it was working, to take some snapshot of all your project and save that, So then at any point in time, you will be able to come back to this particular state, to this particular snapshot, and simply work with that. I mean, how cool would it be, right? If we could just go back to version 1, version 2, 3, and so on, and just start working just where we left. So I'm saying that because maybe that's something that we need to think about, and maybe that's what we are going to solve and to learn in this course. So that's about scenario number 1. Let me know if it has ever happened to you, and we are going further to scenario number 2. And in this scenario, we are going to refer to a situation when you have a team and you are working on the same project. And in this case, everyone does its best and trying to work on all the folders and all the files and all of that just to contribute as much as possible, right? That's what we do when we work with a team. And let's say that you even share these files online so that everyone can work on them directly. But one night, just before releasing the product, you and your colleague, let's call him Nick, you both decide to make last-minute changes to one and the same file. And you both haven't told one another that you are going to work on this file, so you and Nick, you do a great job, and then you go to sleep. After you edited the file, everyone made his own changes, and you know that tomorrow is a great day, your file is working perfectly, the project is getting released. Simply amazing, right? And tomorrow comes, but the biggest problem is that nothing seems to work. Once again, the file that both of you were working at last night seems to be kind of corrupted. There are parts of your code and there are other parts of Nick's code. One code overrides the other and nothing seems to work. So basically, there is a complete mess in the files you've been both working on. And guys, that's something that may happen when working not properly with your team on a project. And now I want you to think about how cool would it be if you had some system that can track every change that anybody does to the project. Think of a system that would let the whole team to work on one and the same file, on one and the same folder, without destroying the whole project. This will allow your team a full collaboration. How awesome would it be if we could track all the changes that anybody does in our project, right? So, to summarize, due to these two scenarios, two cases that I've just shown you, and a couple of additional problems that may arise if not developing appropriately, that's exactly why you should be familiar with version control systems. So what is a VCS? A VCS basically stands for Version Control System, and it consists of some of the following characteristics. First of all, it keeps versions of every file in your project, including both new and old versions. It documents every change done to the project by making an associated descriptive message. So every time you will make a change, you should specify why you've done this change, so that later on, if we have some bugs or something that doesn't seem to work, we can come back to one of our previous versions that were working before this given change was made. Also, a version control system, as its name suggests, is working with versions. So another nice thing that it does is displaying the differences between different versions, so that this way you can clearly see what was changed between every version in your project. So simply saying, it's great for developing on your own and also to work on different projects with other people. It simplifies the work with your colleagues, as well as giving you some time machine with snapshots of your projects to go back to previous versions in case that something stops working. And there are also other things that we may say about version control systems, but I think that we've already said pretty much exactly what we need for this course. Alright, so basically there are a lot of different version control systems that we can use, but we are not going to make a comparison between all of them. That's not the goal of this course. The goal of this course is basically to take just one of them, one of the most famous ones, one of the most famous version control system that is called Git. So that's basically our new and our good friend for this course, and it's called Git version control system. And simply saying, it lets you keep track of changes in files. It also documents the changes you make, as well as specifying who did the change, when the changes were done, and so on. And after we will learn a little bit about the basics of Git, we are going to proceed with the remote version control system, and particularly with GitHub, which is simply a tool that allows you to coordinate work between your members on your team, which is pretty amazing. So now that we know this much, we are ready to start working with Git. And before we proceed, I want to ask you a simple question. What is a remote version control system and why do we even need one? I mean, we already have Git, which is also a version control system, and we already know how to use it to track files, to track changes in our project, and so on. Everything seems to be great so far, so why should we even think of anything else? Why do we need something remotely? And the reason is very simple. Git is great for managing your repository and working on your project, especially locally, right? But at the beginning of the course, we said that we want to be able to do the following things. We said that first of all, what we want is to be able to track the changes, meaning version control, and that's something that pretty much can be done using Git. But also what we wanted to have is the ability for collaboration. We know that probably if you're going to work on some big project, on some complex project, you're not going to do it alone. So you have your team and you want all of your team to work on one and the same project. Although that's still possible just by using Git, but if we'll do so, it's going to be way too messy. So that's one of many good reasons as to why we need some remote version control system for the development of our project. And before we proceed, I want to show you some really cool example that will demonstrate in more detail what is the problem and what solution you may need. We can proceed to choose the exact remote version control system that we will be working in this course. And while there are a couple of options to choose from, such as GitLab, Bitbucket, and a few more, we are going to go with the most used nowadays Git repository hosting service, and that's GitHub. So chances are high that you've heard about this guy at least once. I mean, there was a lot of buzz when Microsoft acquired GitHub for about $7.5 billion. Pretty amazing, right? Aside from that, GitHub is also considered to be, at least for now, the largest community for developers in the world. As a matter of fact, there are over 100 million repositories on GitHub and there are over 40 million users. So many users and so many repositories, as well as being backed by Microsoft. Not bad, guys, right? So that's our new friend, GitHub. And if you would like to summarize in pretty much just one sentence of what GitHub is, we can say that it's a Git repositories hosting service that has code collaboration and version control tools for repositories management. Something like that.